Okay, so we have set some looks and we've recorded some looks, and we've even played back cues and subs, and we've used our groups to build those cues. But we all know this is theater and things change. So how is it now that once we have all of these cues and subs recorded, should something change, how do we address that? Well, let's first look at how we might change a cue that we've recorded. There are two primary ways to do that. One of which is what we do, making an edit live. That means you bring the cue up on stage, you look at it, you see if it looks the way you want it, you make a change, you tweak some levels, and then you re-record it or update it. The other way is to change it in blind. We haven't talked much about blind, but that's another mode of display which allows us to make edits to cues that aren't actually up on the stage, and we'll talk about how to do that in a moment. But let's first bring up a cue in live mode and make a change to that. So I'm just going to run cue number 1 and wait for it to finish. And now I've got cue number 1 up on stage, and this is my look that I stored into cue 1 earlier. But now I'm looking at the stage and I see those a couple of lights that are too bright. It just doesn't look right. And I notice 4 and 5 are at full. Well, maybe they need to come down a little bit. So what I want to do right now is grab channels 4 and 5. I type channel 4 and 5, and I'm just going to put them at 90%. Now you'll see that I've captured those channels at 90%. Keypad corner indicates that they're captured. And you can see on my display that the rest of the cue is still up. I haven't done anything to the rest of the cue. I've just changed 4 and 5 at 90%, and I've overridden the level that they were in the cue. They were at full. Now they're at 90. But now I need to save this. This would be just like when you open up a document in a word processor and you make some changes, and now you want to click Save so that when you open it up again, those changes are saved. How do we save an already existing cue on an Express console? There is a feature on the desk called Update. Update is actually a feature that is located in our soft keys, and you remember that our soft keys are these commands that live in these 8 boxes down at the bottom of our display, and Update is soft key number 2. If you don't see it on your desk, hit more soft keys until you do. So if I want to update this cue, I simply hit S2, which corresponds to the update command. My command prompt will say to update the cue, select the number and press enter. So I want to make sure that I'm editing the proper cue, so I'm going to look up in keypad corner and see that I'm editing cue 1. And that's the cue I want to update, so I just hit enter. And the channels are no longer captured, and you can see that the cue now has the new 4 and 5 at 90%. And that's how I can edit a cue live. Well, let's say I wanted to make a change to cue 2. Maybe I know in advance, even though cue 2 is not currently up on stage, I know that there are going to be some lights that might be too dim because, or too bright or whatever. I can also make those changes without bringing the cue up live, and I can do that by going into my blind display. So I hit blind, which is right next to stage. And this will bring up a display that looks a lot like the stage display. It still has my channels, except the title of the display is blind, and my attribute bar will tell me what cue I'm currently looking at. Well, I don't want to look at cue 1 right now because I've just made that change live. So what I can do is on my keypad, I type cue 2, and now I have a representation of cue 2. And I can see that I've got levels that are completely different from cue 1. And my channels 1 and 2, for instance, are at 0%. Well, I know that's not bright enough. I need them on, let's say, at 25%. So what I can do in blind is say channel 1 and 2 at 25. Now again, I've captured them. There they are. But I haven't actually restored this. And you notice there is no update key in blind because update is a feature that's reserved for live. So what do I do at this point? Well, don't leave this display. That would be similar to making a change in your word processor and then closing it or shutting off your computer without saving. Anything you've done isn't going to be saved. One of the critical things to remember about making a change when you're in blind mode is that you will get an indication here on the console. It's flashing, not recorded. Basically, you've made an edit, but you haven't told the console you want to save. So what I want to do is hit record and enter. And now you'll see that my levels have updated to reflect the new level of 25%. So when I go back to stage mode and I'm in cue 1, when I press go to Q2, which is happening in 5 seconds. Instead of going to 0, these channels go to 25%, which is their edited value, and I did that in blind. So those are the two main ways to edit a cue on the Express console.